Welcome, everybody, to Survive and Advance on the Grueling True Sports Network. Survive and Advance includes maybe the greatest co-host of all time, Steve Risley. How you doing today, Steve?
Doing great.
I was just trying to throw you off by giving you a compliment. Of course, my name is Mike Goodpaster. I don't know why I say of course. It doesn't mean everybody knows who I am. But next up, we have a man that, since the Cowboys weren't doing so well, he didn't want to be on the show the last few weeks. But now, since they're starting to win again, Anthony Cervino's back on the show. How you doing, Anthony?
Mike, I'm doing great. I'm excited coming off that win. I've been excited the past 2 weeks coming off that Philadelphia win, too. And when we get to this game, you know where I'm going to go and where I'm going to take my take on the Cowboys.
All right, we're going to wait on that. We're going to wait on that.
Because Anthony.
Yes.
Like anybody gives a damn. You know, like who cares about the Cowboys besides you?
America's team.
No,
America cares.
They're not America's
Mike,
team.
if you don't jump on him for
Okay,
that,
wait a second. All I know is this. When the Pittsburgh Steelers travel to Dallas, there's usually 40,000 Steeler fans there. When the Cowboys travel to Pittsburgh, there's 5,000 to 10,000.
But the Cowboys didn't get the America's team stigma because of traveling fans. They got it because they were on national TV and Roger Staubach.
They got it from something that was completely made up by the NFL and ABC.
But nothing's changed. Nothing's changed. No matter how good or bad the Cowboys are the number one headline, no matter if they have one win or 15 wins. They're still the top headline. They still get prime time games.
Wait a second, Anthony. This is a team that hasn't sniffed the Super Bowl since the mid-'90s.
Mike.
And the reason they are on all the time is because their owner is a complete and utter buffoon.
Just start with this game. Just don't even worry about going to the Bears game from last night. Just start with this game and get this crap over with.
Yeah, I mean, because the Dallas Cowboys, we'll start off with, as Steve so eloquently put it, this crap. The Dallas Cowboys are now back in the hunt. I mean, the best play for them this year was the play where Alex Smith got hurt. But the Cowboys beat the Falcons 22-19. The excitement for Cowboy fans is because they beat a team that's 2 games below 500, lost to the Bengals at home also earlier in the year. And what did the Falcons do last week? Did they lose to the Cleveland Browns in Cleveland?
I believe, let's see.
Yeah, you don't have to look it up.
I'm sure they did, yeah, 28-16. They lost to the Browns.
Yeah, by double digits to a team that is thinking about having Condoleezza Rice be their head coach. So when we look at this,
she'd be better than Hugh Jackson.
Well, come on.
Or Hugh, whatever his name is, Hugh, whatever.
My shoes would be better than Hugh Jackson, but we'll talk about Hugh Jackson in a little bit when we talk about the Bengals. But
all right, go back to the Cowboys. Anthony's being awful quiet.
Well,
no, I'm just letting you guys go on.
This is the thing. Anthony has respect for me, so he doesn't interrupt me when I speak like some people do. But let's go ahead and get to this. What? Steve, come on. So what we've got is
I'm just going to be honest with both
See
you
what
guys.
I mean, Anthony? Right there, I start to talk, and he immediately starts to talk again. It never ends.
I'm telling you right now, between the NASCAR championships and IU basketball playing, I didn't see much NFL.
I don't know what a NASCAR championship is. Is that
of course you don't.
But when we look at the Dallas Cowboys, and let's look at their season so far, all right? This is a team that has they lost to the Panthers. They beat the Giants. They lost to the Seahawks. They beat the Lions. So far, they beat 2 teams with losing records. They beat the Jaguars, which is a losing record. They lost to the Redskins. They lost to the Titans. They beat the Falcons. They beat the Eagles. So my point on this is, have they beat a team with a winning record? And more importantly, the Cowboys beat the Eagles 27-20. And I know you think the Cowboys are going to beat the Saints, but I hate to tell you this. The Saints beat the Eagles 48-7. The Cowboys barely beat the Falcons, who lost by double digits to the Cleveland Browns. And the last time that we saw them play a 500 team, they played on Monday night against the Tennessee Titans in a game that you told me they would win. And they got manhandled. They got physically dominated on both lines of scrimmage, and they got beat 28-14. They're going to play the Washington Redskins with their backup quarterback. They'll win that game. But then they're going to play the Saints, and they'll lose that one. They're going to go to Indy. They're going to lose that one. There's the only saving grace for them is this, Anthony. They could go 4-2 the rest of the way because they play a beat-up Redskins team, they play a bad Eagles team, they play a bad Giants team, and they play a bad Buccaneers team. So even if this team makes the playoffs, it's not going to matter because they're going to get physically destroyed in the first playoff game they play. And I don't even know why, as a Cowboy fan or a fan of any team in the NFC East, anybody can be excited about their team being led to slaughter.
I like the fact that the Cowboys, their back has been against the wall, and in back-to-back games on the road, the Cowboys didn't have a shot, and they showed that they could come out with the win. And I think the biggest takeaway is looking back into the season, the Cowboys really only lost one game where Ezekiel Elliott managed more than 20 touches. Anytime Ezekiel Elliott touches the ball over 20 times, the Cowboys play well. And in the past 2 games, he's caught 7 passes and 6 passes. Ezekiel Elliott, I know he's not mentioned in the same conversation as the Gurleys and the Kamaras in terms of being a really good pass catcher out of the backfield, but that's the part of Ezekiel Elliott's game that we are starting to see now. Okay. And I don't think that the Cowboys are a lock to beat the Saints. No, I'm not crazy, but I think they have a shot.
Well,
I think that they're going to bring a pretty – listen, I don't know if the Saints have played a defense like the Cowboys yet.
You don't think this – so – I mean, the Rams' defense, I think, is better. I think the Cowboys' defense
look at the Rams' defense. The Rams' defense has been playing terrible all season.
Yeah,
the Rams' defense has been torn up all season. And
I agree. But I can tell you this. I don't think you've played a team with a defense this year. I mean, when you look at this, you haven't even really played a team with an offense, have you? I mean, if you look at this, let's go through this again. They played the Panthers. They're not an offensive juggernaut.
I mean, yes, they are. I mean, have you
watched their games? Juggernaut?
Have you watched their games?
Yeah, I've watched their games. And I know this. Cam Newton's an all-right quarterback who's played much better this year. But when you look at the Panthers, an offensive juggernaut should have an offensive line. They don't, which is why they lose games like they did against Detroit. When you look at the running game, they got Christian McCaffrey. He's a guy that I think more games than not has been under 100 yards this year. Wide receiver-wise, you got Devin Funchess. Greg Olsen, who's a great player when he's healthy. Torrey Smith. I mean, I don't see how they're an offensive juggernaut, but what I do know is this. They held the Cowboys to 8 points. And when you look at the defense, they beat the Giants. Bad offense. They played the Seahawks and gave up 24 points. Not a great offense, but a great quarterback. They gave up 24 points to the Lions. They shut down the Jaguars, but everybody shuts down the Jaguars nowadays. They lose to the Texans. My biggest key here is this. The best teams they've played, the Panthers, probably the Seahawks, the Texans, the Titans. Those are the 4 best teams they've played, Anthony, and they're 0-4 against those teams. So to think that they can't beat teams like that and think all of a sudden they're going to load up and play the New Orleans Saints and win the game is, I think, a little crazy.
I've seen crazier things happen, but you're bringing up a Cowboys team earlier in the season. They seemed lost. There was no Amari Cooper, and yeah, you bring up the Titans game. Amari Cooper, that was his first game with the team. That offense is playing completely different. Yeah. Just like I said a few weeks ago on the show.
You said they would beat the Titans because they had Amari Cooper, and it would totally open up the offense. But they played a team with a defense and a coach, and they got shut down.
The offense is opened up. A lot of wide receivers are involved.
It's opened up? I mean, they had 350 yards total offense against a terrible Falcons defense.
But how many yards do you want them to
well, what I would like is this.
400 or 500 yards a game?
If your offense is good and you're playing the Atlanta Falcons,
not everybody's going to do that.
Hold on. Now you're starting to be like Steve. If you are the Dallas Cowboys and you want to play with the Saints, you got to score points. And the thing I do know is this. When you can only put 3 points up, 6 points up for the first 3 quarters against the Atlanta Falcons, who are bad defensively, who gave up 28 points to the Cleveland Browns last week, I don't see how you could say that this offense is good enough to get it done. The offensive line is not very good. I like Prescott. I like Elliott. I don't see anything else there. I mean, Amari Cooper had 3 receptions for 36 yards. And you could say, well, it opened it up for other people. The best receiver outside of the running back out of the backfield was Cole Beasley at 5 for 51. Jeff Swaim at 4 for 24. And when you look at him the week before, they scored 27 points against the Eagles. And the Eagles' defense is atrocious right now. And once again, when you go to the receivers, Amari Cooper, 6 for 75 yards. The next best receivers, 4 for 37. Michael Gallup, 2 for 36. I don't see the weapons here offensively because your defense is not a great defense. And if you're not a great defense, you're not going to slow down Drew Brees. Drew Brees is going to score 30 on you no matter what you do. And when he does that, the only way you can beat him is to score 31.
You know, looking in the Saints' schedule, okay, the Buccaneers, Browns, Falcons, Giants, Washington has a pretty good defense. The Ravens has a pretty good defense, but they've been exploited at times. The Vikings, you never know what you're going to get. They're your only real good defenses that the Saints have played.
And all those are much better than any defenses you guys have played.
I think the Cowboys can put pressure on Drew Brees. I think that they could contain Alvin Kamara. Yeah, I think we'll see. I can't wait for this game. Well, especially if the Cowboys have momentum coming off 3 straight wins.
Yeah, 3 straight wins against teams that aren't very good.
Now, we're overlooking the Redskins game on Thursday.
I'm not overlooking it because the fact that you won't overlook it tells me you know this team can't beat the Saints. Because if you're not willing to overlook it and guarantee that as a win, how are you going to say they're going to beat the Saints a week later? I mean, the Redskins are going to be playing with their backup quarterback.
A backup quarterback who was 2-0 against the Cowboys as the Redskins starter since 2014.
Yeah, which tells you a lot about the Cowboys.
McCoy has the Cowboys number.
Colt McCoy. I can tell you this. The fact that Colt McCoy would have your team's number should make you real weary about picking your team against Drew Brees. I mean, when you look at this, the Saints can outscore you. They can play defensively and beat you. And if you look at it, they beat Baltimore in Baltimore. Baltimore's a better team than Dallas if Joe Flacco's playing. I mean, that's just, I think that's a fact. The Saints beat the Redskins, who you're worried about with Colt McCoy, 43-19 in a game that wasn't as close as the score. New Orleans went to Minnesota and won 30-20. Whatever you say, Minnesota's probably going to end up as a wild card team. They host the undefeated Rams, and they put 35 points on them in the first half, beat them 45-35. They go to Cincinnati, and no matter what you say about the Bengals are better than most of the team the Cowboys have beaten. Probably better than all the teams the Cowboys have beaten because the Cowboys haven't beaten anybody. And they put 35 up in the first half again. They go and they play the Eagles, and they put up 48 points. And I don't think you guys could score 48 points against the Eagles if you played them every day for a week.
I mean, the Cowboys hung 40-something on the Jaguars' defense.
Wow.
Say what you will about a Jaguars defense,
but they
held the Pittsburgh Steelers to 20 points.
Yeah.
Yesterday.
Yeah.
Hey, guys, can I interject here for just a second? You know there's these people out here that use statistics to prognosticate things out, how things are going to be, and what they're on pace to do. We're on pace for about a 6-hour show right now because we have spent 14, 15, 16 minutes talking about the Cowboys.
Because they're America's team.
Game today? Exactly. Is this just a Dallas Cowboys show today?
Proves my point. They're America's team.
No, it proves the point of this. We have a man on that is delusional enough to think his team can beat the New Orleans Saints when they can't beat the Tennessee Titans.
I have Jerry Jones syndrome. This is called Jerry Jones syndrome.
What's Jerry Jones syndrome?
Always think you can win.
No matter, still going on about
always think they can win.
Yeah, it's Jerry Jones syndrome. You can think whatever you want, but there is a huge difference between reality and the world that Jerry Jones lives in. All right, let's go to one we agreed on, me and Anthony, a few weeks ago, and that would be Steve's Indianapolis Colts, who won again to move to 5-5, won 38-10 over the Tennessee Titans. The Colts are hot. And to me, Quentin Nelson should be the offensive rookie of the year. I don't care what Patrick Mahomes does. I think that Quentin Nelson, for his position, is maybe the most dominant player to come into that position at guard in the NFL since John Hanna. And Anthony, I think now we're getting to the point where even though the schedule's not that tough, the thing we see is this team's developing where if they keep this up, they could be a real handful when you get to the end of the season.
Yeah, I don't know if you take Drew Brees out of the equation. I don't know if there's another quarterback playing as well as Andrew Luck right now.
Russell Wilson, maybe?
Well, go on.
No, I said Russell Wilson, maybe.
Yeah, but is he putting up the monster numbers that Andrew Luck is? I mean, Wilson's
you know what?
well
if Wilson had T.J. Hilton or T.Y. Hilton, he probably would, but he doesn't. I'm just saying that I would put Russell Wilson in that conversation just because he's doing it pretty much all on his own.
But yeah, you want to go back to Andrew Luck here. You want to credit a lot of his success to Marlon Mack in the running game, the offensive line. Braden Smith, he's being overshadowed by Quentin Nelson, and Braden Smith's a rookie who's also playing well. I mean, this Colts offensive line, I think that they could really control the rest of the season and get the Colts into a playoff spot.
All right, Steve, what do you think? You there, Steve? Steve? I think we lost Steve Risley. Steve Risley, where are you at? All right.
I think he's shocked that the Colts are going to be a playoff team.
All right, let's see if we can get him back on. Must have lost him. Technical difficulties. And the other thing here is the Tennessee Titans. I mean, I think we find out with the Titans that this is being done basically because they've got a really good coach. They're not really that good of a point yet. So, all right, real quick, we're going to take a quick commercial break and see if we can figure out what's going on with Steve. But we will be back right after this.
Tune in to Game Day IQ for the smartest hour in sports. Test your knowledge of sports trivia on everything from football, basketball, and baseball to cricket, tennis, and hockey to horse racing, auto racing, and soccer, and, of course, the Olympics. Every week, you'll learn tantalizing details of sports' most intriguing conundrums that you can stump your friends with.
Find out what sports figure needs a remedial trip to Coach Buck's bench. Settle in for story time with Uncle Bucky. See if this is the week that I go off on a Category 5 level rant. Learn whose performance on or off the playing surface deserves a special place on this week's pedestal. All that plus a variety of other features that all add up to the most cerebral hour in sports this week. Oh, and you'll have fun too. So raise your Game Day IQ by joining me, host Chris Cook and
Alan Buck, for an informative look at This Week in Sports right here at thegruelingtruth.net.
All right, guys, we're back on Survive in Advance. I'm Mike Goodpaster with Anthony Cervino and hopefully Steve Risley. Steve, you there? And that seems like maybe he's not. I don't know what you did to him, Anthony, but you need to stop.
Uh-oh.
Oh, hell. But, all right, guys, we're going to keep trying to get Steve back on. But while we're doing that, let's go on. And what is your take on the Titans? They're 5-5. They still have a shot to make the playoffs, as almost every team in the NFL does, with more than 3 wins. What do you think their chances are?
Considering that the Indianapolis Colts, they're playing really well, and the Houston Texans, they're playing really well. I think the difference between the Colts, the Texans, and the Titans is the quarterback. I don't believe in Marcus Mariota. I've never been a Marcus Mariota guy. I think that the Mariota and Jameis Winston draft class, when they went 1-2, I think that was a lot of media hype because they clearly haven't translated in the NFL, and I just think that Mariota will struggle down the stretch. I don't believe in him whatsoever. Same thing, you can say the same thing about Derrick Henry.
All right, Steve, I think, is back on with us. Steve, what's your take on the Colts run and your take on the Titans?
Colts, great. Luck's playing great. Luck should be an MVP candidate. I think they're building a solid offensive line. They've got a decent running back in Marion Mack, who's taking some pressure off of Luck. When you can get the ball to T.Y. Hilton, he's as effective a receiver as there is. Tennessee, they're just all over the place. They're up and down. One week they look like a playoff team, and next week, like the last couple of weeks, or last week, they look pretty bad. From what I saw, again, I don't get the Colts out here, so I didn't get to see the game other than on Red Zone. But I don't think the Colts are America's team. I think we have an owner who's just about as goofy as Jerry Jones, but not quite.
Oh, he's goofier, but just in different ways.
In different ways,
You know that both of them have probably been at owners' meetings before, like drunk off their asses, staggered around, trying to talk to different guys. And
yeah, I think the Colts may make a playoff run. I don't know. Are they there? Somebody, did you tell me that they're actually in the playoffs right now?
I don't know if they're in it, but I think that they are tied with like 5 other teams that would be there.
Yeah, the Colts will not make a dent in the playoffs in anybody. I don't think they're deep enough or strong enough. But the good news about the Colts is Luck's healthy and they're building a solid offensive line. And I think for the Colts to be successful down the road and to keep Andrew Luck an MVP candidate player, you've got to have a better offensive line than they've had in the past. And their Colts are heading in the right direction. They're not there yet. They're heading in the right direction. Well, I'm not delusional enough to think that my team, like some idiots, to think the Cowboys are going to win the Super Bowl this year. I think the Colts might make the playoffs. I don't know if it's a real benefit to them for them to do it, but you might as well. But they're on a 4-game winning streak. They haven't played anybody really tough.
All right, last Thursday night, Anthony, Green Bay Packers lose to the Seattle Seahawks 27-24. I think Russell Wilson is playing out his mind. I think this team's turned out to be a lot better than we thought. Rashad Penny, Chris Carson, they got guys that can run the ball. I think the schedule's too tough for them to make the playoffs the rest of the way. My question is, are the Packers done, and is Mike McCarthy going to be done?
Yeah, I think the Packers, they're done this season, and I don't see how Mike McCarthy makes it past Black Monday.
Ooh, is that where you do all the shopping? I know.
No, that's when all.
By the way, I just figured I'd mess with you. It's all right.
Well, maybe the coaches will get fired.
Well, I think the coaches are definitely going to get fired here. What do you think, Steve? You think there's any way they can save this? Because when I look at the schedule, they go to Minnesota, probably a loss. They play the Cardinals, which they should win. They got the Falcons at home, they should win. At the Bears is probably a loss. At the Jets is probably a win. When I look at this team, I don't see this team winning more than 8 or 9 games, and I don't think that gets you even sniffing the playoffs in the NFC.
Yeah, I just think that Aaron Rodgers has just become a quarterback now that will have flashes of brilliance. He's not going to be brilliant anymore. He'll have flashes. He'll have games where he'll be the old Aaron Rodgers, but it won't be consistent enough for the Packers to be a threat for anything. They're going to start thinking about making changes again. I mean, just at that point in the career where that starts happening. And yeah, I don't think their coach will stick around. But I just don't see them as being a relevant team this year at all in the NFL.
All right, that brings us to a team that is not a relevant team this year, and probably the biggest disappointment in this league, I think. The Jacksonville Jaguars dropped to 3-7. They blew a 16-0, 16-6 lead. Lost the game in the final seconds to the Pittsburgh Steelers, 20-16. My question is this, Steve: how long can you continue to play Blake Bortles when he's 10 for 18 for 104 yards?
Well, I mean, they're proving that number's not measurable, and it's to infinity and beyond, it looks like. I mean, they're not giving up on him. They keep sticking with him. They need to be on a quarterback hunt. That seemed like a pretty solid football team, except for that one position. And I guess now you see how important the quarterback position is in the NFL, because other than that, we all thought Jacksonville was a team that could contend to play in the Super Bowl this year. And Bortles has not a great year. And look where they are. They're 3-7, and they're done. I mean, they need to be done with Bortles this year and spend some money and go find a quarterback.
But
like I said, I brought up the point that it'd be fun to see Eli Manning there for a year and see what he could do. But it'd probably be a little better, but I'm not sure it'd be a lot better.
It'd be a lot better.
But,
it can't be worse.
Can't be worse, that's for sure. Yeah. They're going to keep banking on Bortles. They're going to keep failing. And I mean, it's not that I have an opinion on Blake Bortles. It's just history, tends to repeat itself.
They signed Bortles to a 3-year, $54 million contract last offseason, and they could have gotten rid of him. They could have declined his option and been free of Blake Bortles.
Yeah, so the question there is, who made that call?
This is a Tom Coughlin move. And Tom Coughlin, I'm a big Coughlin fan. I think he should be in the Hall of Fame. I think he turned around. I think Tom Coughlin is one of the biggest free agent acquisitions that nobody's talking about, because when he came to the Jaguars, he's the one who really turned this team around. How much of this season is on Blake Bortles and how much of it is on Leonard Fournette?
Well, I think this season, Leonard Fournette was hurt, he played well yesterday, but I think this falls on Tom Coughlin's shoulders. I think he did some stuff. He's trying to build an all-star team like the Rams did or like the Eagles did last year, and I think it's failed. You cannot. This is like having a Rolls Royce and trying to use water for gas in it. You can't run and win a Super Bowl with Blake Bortles. So why even mess with spending all the money on the other parts if you're not going to take care of the main piece? Steve?
No, I agree. Yeah, that's what I just said. So, I'm in total agreement with you there.
Okay. Okay, that's good. Eli Manning, is he done? Or, because it's hard to think that a guy would be done if he's going to go, even against Tampa Bay, 17 for 18, 231 yards, and 2 touchdowns, Anthony.
I don't think Eli Manning is done, just for the fact that I believe that Eli Manning believes that he could still play football, especially when you have guys his age like Phillip Rivers and Ben Roethlisberger, and then older and Tom Brady and Drew Brees all playing well. I think Eli Manning still believes in himself. Me personally, I don't know if Eli Manning is done. I think he should be done in New York. I think Eli Manning needs to be in a spot with a better offensive line that could actually keep him upright. Because we've seen it in the past couple of games when Eli Manning is upright, Eli Manning still looks pretty good.
Yeah, and that's how most quarterbacks are. And when you look at this, they're 3-7, but now with the injury to Alex Smith, do the Giants have any kind of shot here? They finish, Anthony, at Philly. They host the Bears. They're at the Redskins, host the Titans, at the Colts, host the Cowboys. Is there any chance here for them? Because, when you got Saquon Barkley running for 140 yards and Eli Manning only missing one pass, you got to ask the question when Alex Smith's gone. I don't think they do have a chance, but what's your take on it?
I think it's slim. They're on a nice 2-game win streak. They've looked good, but I don't trust it. I don't trust their offensive line to keep it together against the better defenses.
Yeah, I think they're dead in the water just from the fact, Steve, that 2-game win streak is against the 49ers and the Buccaneers.
Right. Yeah, they've got to win out for them to even have a chance.
Well, I think in this division, when you look at it now, with the lack of any quality teams, Anthony, 8-8 could win this division.
Oh yeah, it certainly can. But of all the teams, I would still probably put almost Washington ahead of the Giants, even without Alex Smith, just because they have a better defense.
Actually, I don't know who I would even favor to win this division anymore. I would probably favor the Redskins just because they've got a little bit of a head start when they lost their quarterback. But this team's a mess. Without Alex Smith, I think they're in trouble. Eagles are a mess. Giants are a mess. The Cowboys are a partial mess. It's just according to what day you catch them on. So when you look at it, if you had to pick a winner of the NFC East, Steve, because we know what Cowboy Boy is going to say. He's going to pick the Cowboys. Who do you think wins this division?
Cowboys.
Ooh, Anthony. There you go.
No, I do. I think they're in the best position to win it right now. But
The Eagles don't have a.
So basically, the Cowboys become the cream of the crop. So good for them.
The Eagles don't have a cornerback or a defensive back. I think I saw the stat that's been on a team 4 weeks ago. All
right, I'm going to say this. I think the Redskins are going to win this division. And I think it's all over but the shouting, as they used to say, if Washington wins Thursday at Dallas. Because if you look at the Redskins' schedule the rest of the way, they're at the Eagles, they host the Giants, they're at the Jaguars, they're at the Titans, and they host the Eagles. I mean, that schedule's not that hard. And there are a lot worse quarterbacks out there that are starting on other teams that are worse than Colt McCoy, Anthony.
Yeah, I think Washington's going to have a tough go, but, their offense, they're decimated. They're already, banged up without the Alex Smith injury yesterday. They're down to their number 3 and 4 wide receivers. Adrian Peterson, I mean, how much longer is he going to keep going? We don't know when we're going to see Chris Thompson, who's their most explosive offensive player, back on the field. I mean, his role is being filled by Capri Bibbs right now, who's really a journeyman when there's not an injury. The offensive line, they keep losing body after body after body. I just don't see how the Redskins can hold on.
All right. Now, the next team I want to go to that I think is kind of perplexing to me also, and that really, Steve, that means it confuses me about them, whether they're good or not. But the Carolina Panthers lost to the Detroit Lions 20-19 yesterday. The Panthers have now dropped 2 in a row. They got completely annihilated by Pittsburgh last week. And when you look at it, Cam Newton, 25 for 37, 357 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. But I'll still go back to this with them. I don't think the offensive line is very good. And Christian McCaffrey, 13 carries, 53 yards. He's a dual threat. He's going to throw in 50 or 60 yards with that in the running game. But I still don't think there's enough weapons here for the Panthers to contend with the Saints and the Bears and the better teams in this league. Anthony?
Yeah, see, I have a little bit of a different take on the Panthers. I think their offense is explosive. They just need to put it all together and be a little bit more consistent with it. I think one of the biggest weights on the Panthers is Devin Funchess. Devin Funchess in his career hasn't really done a lot, and now you have 2 younger players like DJ Moore and Chris Samuel. I think they should be your 2 top wide receivers and let Devin Funchess take a back seat, because if you look, both Samuel and DJ Moore, whether they're getting numbers. They're putting up big numbers, they can run the ball, you can put them in motion, you can do so much. Really, Devin Funchess' role is being played by Greg Olsen.
Yeah, I still think the biggest problem here is the offensive line for the Panthers. But, Steve, when you look at this, what's your take on the Panthers? Because I know we both said that Cam Newton was playing better. It looked like he was more in control of what was going on a few weeks ago. It still looks that way to me. So I think there's bigger issues with this team right now.
I just don't think a team's going to win consistently in the NFL when you have a quarterback who wants to be something other than a quarterback. And I think Cam Newton wants to be a great athlete more than he wants to be a great quarterback.
But you do realize Cam Newton ran the ball twice for 2 yards yesterday. He stayed in the pocket and threw for 357.
I know, but it's not the question. It's I understand that. I'm just looking at the big picture overall. He's 25 of 37, 357 yards, 3 TDs. It's a great quarterback day, but I still think I just don't see him as a great quarterback.
Can you make the case?
He's a great athlete he's a great athlete who plays quarterback, and that makes him statistically good. But I don't think his mentality, his mindset is there to play that position the way it needs to be played to win in the NFL. And he's never demonstrated that. He's a great athlete who plays quarterback.
All right, go ahead, Anthony.
You could almost make the case.
He's like the best kid in Sandlot football. When you go out and pick up teams, the best athlete gets to play quarterback.
The Panthers you can make the case that the Panthers are at their best when Cam Newton is running. They were winning a bunch of football games in the past 2 weeks where they lost. Cam Newton has a combined 4 rushing attempts. So is Cam Newton, do you really want him as a pocket passer, or do you want him?
My thing is this, Anthony, when I look at that, the thing that stands out to me is still Christian McCaffrey, except for a few games, their leading rusher, what is Christian McCaffrey? And it's not Cam Newton. It's Christian McCaffrey running for 50 or 60 yards. And the problem is, if Cam Newton does not run, where are you getting your rushing yards? And it's still, you've got to be able to run the ball normally to be able to win in the playoffs. And I think that's what's going to bite them in the ass. And if it doesn't do it before the season's over, it will when they get in the playoffs.
It just seems like the Panthers are at their best when Cam Newton can take off when he has to, when they can run that read option. When you take that away from them, the whole offense, including Christian McCaffrey, like you said, he only put up 53 yards. He goes away.
Yeah, to me, he's more of a stud third down back, like the old Eric Metcalf guys, that they can affect the game multiple different ways. But you're not going to line him up at tailback and hand him the ball 25 times a game. It's just not going to work that way. All right, so we're going to talk about – go ahead.
I was going to say, they gave it to him 28 times. He went off for 184 yards against the Bengals back in Week 3.
Yeah, but that's against the Bengals. We're getting to the Bengals next. It's the only game he did that because the Cincinnati Bengals had Terrell Austin, who was a moron as a defensive coordinator. But yesterday they fixed it by bringing the biggest moron, Marvin Lewis, in to be the defensive coordinator and bringing in an even larger moron in Hugh Jackson to oversee things while Marvin took care of the defense. And what happened was Lamar Jackson looked like an NFL quarterback. He was 13 for 19 for 150 yards. He ran for 117. And the thing that's amazing to me is this. You also had Gus Edwards, who I have no freaking clue who Gus Edwards is, carried the ball 17 times for 115 yards. This Bengal defense gave up over 400 yards to a Lamar Jackson Baltimore Ravens offense. Now, if you give up 400 yards and Joe Flacco got hot and threw for 360, I can understand that. But the Cincinnati Bengals team is a pathetic embarrassment. Marvin Lewis is supposed to be this great defensive coordinator, and he was. When he had, the Ray Lewises, the Tony Siraguses, all these guys that were studs, yeah, he was great. What's he done when he didn't have them? He did a decent job in Washington. Now, all of a sudden, to try to save his job, he's going to be the defensive coordinator. Number one, he personally hired Terrell Austin, and Austin was a miserable failure. So right there, when Austin gets fired by, the idiot Marvin Lewis, Marvin puts himself in. He gets to play against a rookie quarterback, and what's he do? He plays man coverage. And when you play man coverage, it's a guy that can run. The receivers will just run down the field, and then that quarterback will run. And you lose because Marvin Lewis is an idiot. If you're a Cincinnati Bengal fan and you think Andy Dalton's the problem here, you're a bigger idiot. And if you think this Bengals team is ever going to win anything with Marvin Lewis at the helm, you may be the dumbest person I've ever met. So, in the end, the way I can wrap this up is this. If you're a Cincinnati Bengal fan and you have any hope that anything will change, you're an idiot. All right, next up. Oh, we got to talk about the Cleveland Browns and Condoleezza Rice because that's my favorite topic of the day right now. Steve? What do you think? When you heard this yesterday, you had to think maybe The Onion was reporting this or something, didn't you?
Yeah, I don't think there's any validity to it in real life. I mean, I think there is.
I think there is. This is the same team that picked Johnny Manziel in the first round.
I don't even, whatever. I don't think it's a real thing. I mean, I don't. Everybody's come out on Twitter and denied it. Condoleezza Rice has denied it. The Browns have denied it. I mean, which means it's probably going to happen.
Yeah. What do you think, Anthony?
Why not?
You think this is why
not? I'm so perplexed by this whole situation where I thought it was a joke.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
And then I keep hearing about it. And then I see Condoleezza Rice denying. What is going on? What credentials does she have that she's even being considered? Am I missing something?
No.
The credentials that she said was she's on the selection committee for the college football playoffs.
Well, The
That's her
scariest
credentials.
thing is when I Google this, there's all kind of people that think this would be the greatest thing that would ever happen. I mean, I got one article here that says why Condoleezza Rice should coach the Browns. So, I mean, it says here that it would, in this world, diversify the NFL in ways that it could have never imagined. It would be a great thing for society. So, there you go.
Well,
they need to win games. They need to. Push society aside.
And see, didn't their owner Jimmy Haslam say that he was considering it, or was that not true?
He came out and refuted it on Twitter. I mean, he put an article out refuting that there was ever any discussion. He's not on the list. He's not on any list at all. That it was, but that generally means it's probably a possibility to happen.
Yeah.
Why not? Why not? What the hell? I don't care about the Browns. Whatever. If the people Cleveland want to put up with that crap, then let them put up with it.
Hey, the sad thing,
fine
Anthony,
with me.
is this. Since it was floated, Jerry Jones and Mike Brown are thinking about it right now.
I certainly hope Jerry Jones isn't.
Oh, hell. All right, next up. As soon as you think the Los Angeles Chargers have turned the corner and are a contender, they lose to the Denver Broncos 23-22. Case Keenum throws for 205 yards. Philip Lindsay runs for 79 yards. Phillip Rivers threw for 400. Melvin Gordon ran for 70. Is this a case that maybe this is the same old Chargers, Anthony? Or do you think this is just a blip on the radar? It's the NFL, and sometimes you just lose games you shouldn't lose.
I think the way the Chargers have been playing leading up to this game showed us that they're not the same old Chargers. Anytime you have a division game, you can have a 15-1 team and a 1-15 team, and the bad team can come out on top because these two teams meet twice a year. There's all those other odds, so I'm not thinking twice about it, especially since the Chargers could get Hunter Henry back and they got Joey Bosa back finally. I think it's only a matter of time before this team takes off.
All right, Steve, do you agree, or do you think this is something to worry about?
No, I think it's a blip. I think I got to see that game because it's the Chargers. They're out here in L.A. I saw more of that game than any, and Denver just played kind of a good football game. Kind of makes you wonder why they're 4-6 more than I think why the Chargers lost this game. Denver just played well.
All right, now. There's
so
something...
I still think the Chargers are for real. I still don't think anybody's going to get by New England when it comes down to playoff times. I don't think anybody's better than Belichick at coaching in the playoffs. But
well,
I don't see the Chargers going on a losing streak over this.
This is my big thing right now, though, Steve. You just talked about you watching TV, and we were down towards Atlanta, Georgia, and it's a Wednesday night. And it's 2 o'clock in the morning, and there's nothing on. So I'm flipping past the channels, and I see Keeping Up with the Kardashians. And I will never look at you the same way ever again, Steve. Anthony, have you ever seen Keeping Up with the Kardashians?
I have, yes.
Okay. There is no more ignorant show in the world. This is about a bunch of women that their bodies are completely fake. And the episode I watched, and I will admit this, it was hard to stop watching it because it was so inane and stupid that it's hard not to watch it. It's like a car wreck. You got to look. But this episode, Kim was taking selfies and developed carpal tunnel syndrome. And you would have thought that they found out she had leukemia, Steve. I don't know how you could explain being a grown man and consistently watching this show.
No, you're spot on. That's why you watch it, because it's inane, stupid humor.
No, but see,
that's what TV's all designed for.
It was inane and stupid. I watched it for like 45 minutes, and I don't think I'll ever watch it again because it was so stupid to watch rich people taking selfies. And the one paid somebody to be her selfie stick because, her wrist hurt. It actually had a woman following her taking selfies, and she would stick her arm out to make it look like she was taking it. And it was the dumbest thing I've ever seen. But...
Yeah, well, and yeah, I agree. But here's the deal. They have a class about them at Brown University.
Oh, I thought you were going to try to tell me that they had class about them. I was going to say, what?
No. They had a class. There was actually a college class where they get college credit for following the Kardashians. Secondly, that carpal tunnel syndrome she has, that's from running those paychecks to the bank and depositing them. So she's worth about $350 to $400 million, which is a number that none of us will ever see.
Well,
like taking selfies. So,
you know what, though? I've never tried to take selfies. Have you ever taken a selfie, Anthony?
I have. Yes, I have.
Oh,
but not with
God.
the stick.
I don't
and
care.
Not at the
you don't take a selfie if you're
a
man. Risley, have you taken a selfie?
No, I've never taken a selfie.
Thank you.
Really?
I never have. You can go look on my Facebook page all you want. You will not find a picture. Do you make duck lips when you do it, Anthony?
No.
Okay. Make duck lips. It'll be even funnier.
Usually a picture of me and the dog.
Yeah, but you can't take it. Just have somebody take the picture of you and your dog. But next up, we've got the Houston Texans and the Washington Redskins. The Houston Texans keep rolling at 7-3, still a couple games up on the hard-charging, fast-approaching Colts. Deshaun Watson, 16 for 24, 208 yards, 1 touchdown, but 2 picks. Lamar Miller runs for 86, Alfred Blue for 46. Of course, Alex Smith gets knocked out of the game. Colt McCoy comes in and replaces him. Adrian Peterson, 16 for 51. Now, I think there's no doubt Houston is a playoff contender. When you look at the roster, Steve, do you think this is a team that could win games in the playoffs? Or is this a team that's just going to get there, they'll be happy with that, and they'll be eliminated quickly?
No, I think they can win games. I think they're just one of these teams that just they're finding good ways to win. They're a dangerous team. They're a very dangerous football team for everybody right now, especially if they get home games. If they score, keep playing. They're 7-3. If they keep winning and get some kind of home field advantage, they're going to be even more dangerous. I mean, it's starting to be a well put together football team. Now, the question is, can you keep everybody healthy? And it's about time for J.J. Watt to go out again, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's about time where he gets hurt and out for the rest of the year and goes and saves the city from the hurricane again or something.
Yeah, he'll do some superhero stuff.
I don't mean in a negative way. I mean, it's unfortunate that he's just such a great player that can't stay healthy, and he's such a critical part of that team's success. But right. I think they can beat the Texans can beat anybody right now. So we'll see.
All right. Do you agree, Anthony?
Yeah, I do agree, and I don't know if J.J. Watt. The Texans will go as J.J. Watt goes. That's really my take on them.
I think the big thing for them is they've already been in Indianapolis. They played the Colts when the Colts weren't playing quite as well and beat them 37-34 earlier in the year. But once again, the thing that stands out to me, like the Cowboys, is who have they beaten? The bad thing about that is there's only like 5 good teams in the NFL. But when you look at this, I mean, their winning streak has not been against the highest of competition. They beat the Redskins without their quarterback. That's still a good win to beat Washington in Washington. They beat Denver by 2. Still a good win. The thing is this. I still have questions about Deshaun Watson because it still seems like no matter how well he plays, he throws a couple picks. And if you're doing that against Kansas City or New England or Pittsburgh, you're probably going to lose the game. But the thing that sticks out to me with this team is they've played well on the road. I mean, the games they've lost have been close games. They beat the Colts on the road, the Redskins, the Broncos, the Jaguars, which no matter who it is, you win a road game in the NFL, it is an accomplishment. So when you look at them, I think they're going to end up with 6 or 7 road wins, and a team like that is dangerous. And they can run the ball. They've got 2 solid running backs. Like I said, my only question is Deshaun Watson, and if he's ready. I don't know that he's completely ready right now to put a team on his back and make a playoff run, Anthony.
Everything about Deshaun Watson when he was coming out of college was he was a winner and he was a leader and he played well in limited time last year. And now we're seeing, Deshaun Watson have to get over a few more hurdles here and there. My question with Deshaun Watson is, can he go toe-to-toe with a Pat Mahomes or an Andrew Luck when Andrew Luck is playing well? Can they put up the points? They have the talent. They have the Demaryius Thomas, DeAndre Hopkins, who might be the best receiver in football. I'm not as high as on their running backs as you are.
No,
they have a nice young
good.
tight end.
I think they have good running backs.
I think they're a very solid team.
Yeah. But when I look at it, I don't think eventually you're going to play Mahomes or you're going to play Brady.
Missing something. I feel like they're missing something.
Yes.
They're missing it. Yes. They're missing it.
Here's what I think makes them a little dangerous is that I'm looking at their schedule, who they've played. They're winning all the close games. They beat they beat the 20-17, 37-34, 19-16, 20-13. They're winning these close games and doing it fairly consistently. So, the last 2 games they won were 2 points and 2 points. They won, and they're winning all those games, which in the playoffs you get against better caliber teams. You're going to have closer games. You're going to have the blowouts. And somehow they're finding ways to make the right plays at the right time, and they're winning those games, which I think makes them dangerous.
Yeah, but I think you'd be hard-pressed to find any team that's won 7 games right now that hasn't won a bunch of close games, because in the NFL, most games are close. Even the ones we think are going to be blowouts are close.
I'd like to go look at the Saints and see what their scores have been.
All right, do that, because I think if you look at over the season, I think, the Bengals
you may be right.
them.
Yeah, okay.
The Bengals almost beat them. I mean, the Bengals were tied at 7 with them towards the end of the first quarter.
You had to play the other 3 quarters.
Hey, if we got to play the other 3 quarters again, we would be fine. All right, let's look at the Saints. I don't know what they did. I know they had a few close ones at the start. Yeah, they had a 3-point win, a 6-point win, 1-point win. So that's 3 or 4 right there. The game against the Rams.
We think the Saints are a Super Bowl team too. So
yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean,
so
the difference is this:
teams that win close games are usually teams that are teams that make it far in the playoffs.
Yeah, they're the teams that get to the playoffs. I mean, you don't find many teams in the playoffs that didn't have to.
And I'm saying Houston is winning a lot of close games, which I don't think they're the best team, but they're finding ways to win these really close games, which Chargers couldn't do it. They lost a close game.
So let's talk a little Saints, who beat the Eagles 48-7. I think it's safe to say Eagles fans are now quiet, which Anthony will like. Drew Brees threw for 363 yards, 4 touchdowns. Mark Ingram ran for 103. Alvin Kamara runs for 71. Traquan Smith, 10 catches, 157 yards. Thomas, 92 yards. I think this is the best team in football right now. I've said it for the last month, and I'm sticking with it, Anthony.
Yeah, I don't know if you could put the Rams. I know the Rams lost to the Saints. I wouldn't say that the Rams are better than the Saints right now. And the same thing with the Chiefs. To me, it's the Saints 1, the Chiefs 2, Rams 3, and a lot of it's because I think the Saints defense is a lot better than both of those teams. They have a really good run defense, and their secondary is a little shaky. But anytime you have a second-year player like Marshawn Lattimore taking out the opposing team's number 1 receiver, I mean, it spells disaster. And we saw it with the Eagles. I mean, the Eagles' offense is still the Eagles' offense, and they were completely taken apart.
Well, let me ask
the
you
Eagles
this.
are a one-dimensional offense.
The reason I think the Saints are the best team in football is this. What's the most important position on a football team if you want to win?
Quarterback, right?
Quarterback. I mean, yeah.
No. Offensive line. I mean, the Saints have the best offensive line in football. If you put almost any quarterback starting in the NFL in a situation where he's got the best offensive line and he's got 2 running backs like Kamara and Ingram, with that offensive line, I think that's why that's the best team, because this is the thing. People always talk about how running game and defense travels. The thing that travels more than anything else in a football game, I can go play in 60 below weather in Cincinnati or play in 90-degree weather in L.A., and my offensive line is still going to be the best offensive line. I may have the greatest quarterback in the world, but it's 60 below zero in Cincinnati, and all of a sudden, that doesn't matter. And I just think the one constant thing with great football teams. I don't think you can give me, if you listed Anthony or Steve, the 10 greatest teams you ever saw in NFL history, all 10 of those teams had legendary offensive lines. From Anthony's Cowboys of the early 90s, the 49ers of the 80s, the Raiders of the 70s, the Packers of the 60s, the Dolphins of the early to mid-70s, the Cleveland Browns of the 50s. They've got 2 or 3 guys in the Hall of Fame. All of these teams that people list in the top 10 had great offensive lines. And I think that it's also no coincidence that almost every guy that you list as a top 10 quarterback of all time has a top 10 offensive line in front of him. Because let's face it, Eli Manning went from a guy that most people thought was a Hall of Fame quarterback to his offensive line breaking apart, and now people question whether he could even play in the NFL anymore.
No, I agree with that statement 100% with the offensive line.
Yeah.
Right. I'm just
but I agree with you, Mike. I think the Saints are better than the Rams right now just simply because Breeze is better than Goff.
Well, Breeze is better than Goff, but Goff is pretty good. But the thing is this, you're not getting a Breeze. I mean, the Rams paid a lot of money to get a defensive line that could get to anybody, and they came up well short, giving up 45 points to the Saints. The next conversation would be something Anthony would like. What's happened to the Philadelphia Eagles, Anthony?
You know, I think losing their running back earlier in the year, Jay Ajayi, I think that hurt them more than they thought because they do have Wendell Smallwood and Corey Clement and this rookie Josh Adams, but they're not, you know, between the tackle running back like Jay Ajayi is. And if you think back to last year, part of the Eagles' success was LeGarrette Blount. He could convert those short yardage plays. He can convert those touchdowns. And I think that's really, you know, setting the Eagles back, making the offense one-dimensional, and then there's more pressure on Carson Wentz. The Eagles' offensive line, they're starting to get banged up, and they're falling apart.
Well, is there ever a point at 4-6 where your season's almost done, but if you could just go, 4-2, you'd have a shot at the playoffs in the NFC East? Is there a point where, Steve, you would consider, hey, let's put Foles in and see what happens?
Well, I'll get lambasted by you two guys for this, but I said all along I think the mistake was keeping both Wentz and Foles. I don't know. I just feel like it's bad karma. I mean, you had a guy that led him to the Super Bowl last year, and he's sitting on the bench and not playing, and you got your future quarterback there with Wentz. I just feel like that's just bad karma for the whole team, and at this point, you might as well try Foles because it's not getting done with Wentz.
See, I would never disagree with what you just said, Steve, either. Because my whole thought after they won the Super Bowl was, if you just won the Super Bowl, you got a Super Bowl ring that you took that team and won for, how much pressure does that put on Carson Wentz, Anthony?
Right.
Yeah, it puts a ton of pressure on Carson Wentz, but my issue with Carson Wentz, if you think back to his rookie year, he threw 16 touchdowns, 14 picks, 3,700 yards. Last year in 13 games, threw 3,200 yards, 33 touchdowns, 7 picks. Now this year, what we're getting is a little bit of the Carson Wentz of 2016 and not so much the Carson Wentz of 2017. He's making more mistakes. He's lost 5 fumbles this year. 5. So, maybe he's not throwing a ton of picks, but 5 fumbles, that's a lot through 8 games.
Well, he threw a ton of picks yesterday, though. He threw 3
How much
yesterday.
does losing Frank Reich play into this for the Eagles?
I don't think it does.
That's a good point.
I really don't think it does that much. I think the biggest thing here is what we just talked about. The Philadelphia Eagles offensive line was probably the best offensive line in football last year, Anthony. You saw more than I did. Do you agree with that statement? I mean, because they played at a really high level all year.
Oh, absolutely. I absolutely do. The Eagles front 5, I don't know if there was one team better.
Yeah, and that's my take on this. That offensive line, whether it's just because they got old, injuries, whatever, is not as good now. So I think in the end, it's unfair to judge Carson Wentz this year against Nick Foles last year, because Carson Wentz last year look completely different than he does this year. So, once again, I think it goes back to the offensive line. And the other problem is this, though. If you take Nick Foles and you put him back in there, and he has success again, then what do you do? I mean, what if all of a sudden you go 4-2 and you're 8-8 and you make the playoffs with him, and you've got all this money invested in Carson Wentz? That's for whoever wants it, because I think that they won the Super Bowl last year, so this is worth it, I think. But in the end, this causes a problem that they need to solve pretty quickly. And I agree with Steve. I think it was bad karma to keep Foles around. I think they should have kept Foles until about week 4 or 5. And when they realized right before the trade deadline that Wentz was all right, they should have pulled the trigger one way or the other.
You know, the Eagles probably kept him because you're retaining a quality backup quarterback that you know can win, that you know could, go out and win a Super Bowl. And they're not paying him an awful lot of money. He signed a 2-year, $11 million contract. So what is that? $5.5 million a year. And to your point on the Wentz, the Wentz contract, Wentz is still under his rookie deal. So if the Eagles really wanted to move out Carson Wentz, they could, but they're not. You have to get rid of Nick Foles.
Yeah, but that rookie deal was a number one
26.
Quarterback. Yeah, so
$26
that's still a lot of money. It's not like he was the third-round quarterback. So, all right, guys, let's go ahead and look at tonight. We got a huge game. The Kansas City Chiefs against the Los Angeles Rams. The game has been moved from Mexico to L.A., where it should have been all along. What's your take on the moving of the game, Anthony?
No, I like that the players, spoke up and the game had to be moved. You don't want to go into I don't want to say an enemy location, but I don't know what the word I'm looking for, but and get injured because their field conditions are poor and then ruin your season. And maybe you lose Pat Mahomes or Jared Goff or Todd Gurley or Kareem Hunt. You just don't want to see that. So I'm very happy that the NFL moved the game back to Los Angeles, and I'm happy that, maybe we'll see less games get played out of the country.
Well,
I personally don't like it. I
don't like playing games out of the country either. But my concern is this, Steve. I know we talked about this last week a little bit, and when you look at the pictures they posted originally, I could see why they'd moved the game. Then you brought up the fact that they'd put the new sod in, and I think that was last Tuesday they had the new sod in. My thought here is this. I think that you have a lot of Chiefs and Rams fans. They probably paid for hotel rooms, paid airfare. Hell, they might have had to go get a visa or something. And they're out a lot of money on this. I don't think the game should have ever been played there, but once it was scheduled there and the field was fixed, I agree with you now. It probably should have stayed there.
Yeah, I don't think anybody realized how big a game this was going to be, because I don't think anybody expected the Chiefs to be doing what they're doing. Mahomes doing what he's doing. I mean, everybody kind of thought the Rams would be good, but it's a goodwill game, obviously, with Los Angeles going down to Mexico. But I just think the game got too big to play it out of the country. And let's face it, the NFL wanted the Rams they wanted the team in Los Angeles. And they worked their butts off and spent a lot of money to get the Rams back to Los Angeles and to fill up the Coliseum. And then you take the biggest game of the year. Arguably, this may be the biggest game in the NFL this year, or one of the most anticipated now, and you're playing it out of the country. I think it's bad publicity all around to do that. You can't tell me, for the time when they decided to make the call to move it, you could have put AstroTurf down, or I say AstroTurf. You could put artificial turf down in that stadium and got ready to play if you wanted to play the game there. I just think they were looking for any reason to move the game back to L.A. Because it just got too big of a game to play out.
I don't think the NFL was looking for that. I think the NFL would rather play this game in Mexico. You might disagree with me. Anthony might disagree with me, but they love doing this crap, throwing it in other countries, trying to make their market bigger. I think what happened was the picture you saw on Monday was so horrendous that you had the NFLPA get involved. And when that happened, I think that's when this game got moved, Anthony. What do you think?
No, I 100% agree with that.
And I agree with that too.
I know the NFL wants to expand their markets. They want to move teams to London permanently.
I know, which is a joke. But see, this is the thing. When you talk about the field situations, did you see the Miami of Florida Duke game a couple weeks ago? I know you don't watch college football. I don't think either one of you do. But Miami played Duke, and it opened up, and there was a complete monsoon during the second half of that game. And the Miami Dolphins had to play there the next day. And there were significant complaints pregame, with one league source telling Schefter the field was horrendous. It's a complete shit show. In that game, Dolphin left tackle Laramie Tunsil, Jets linebacker Terrell Basham, Dolphins right tackle Juwan James all suffered injuries. Former Ram defensive end Robert Quinn limped off the field at the end of the game. So for what it's worth, this isn't a new issue, as the field was resodded in late September of last year. And I think this just leads us to stuff, and we've seen it, where there'll be a big snowstorm predicted, and they move a game from a Sunday to a Monday, or from Monday up to Sunday. This is football. You play where you're supposed to play. Whatever the conditions are, you just play. Or you change it every time there's an issue. They could have moved the game in Miami up to Orlando and played it there if you were that worried about player safety, Anthony.
Well, which game are you talking about here? The college game?
No, the college game. Miami played Duke. They play at the same stadium that the Miami Dolphins play at. The next day, Adam Schefter reported that the field that league sources were complaining that the field was horrendous and a complete shit show. And you had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys tear their knees in that game, and nobody said a word. So you either need to be equal all the way over. So if you got a college game and the field's destroyed on a Saturday, why are you playing on Sunday if you're worried about player safety? And why is the NFLPA not bringing that up?
Is there a neutral place that they could have played the game?
Well, I mean,
because it was easy. It was fairly easy to move, the Mexico game back to Los Angeles.
Yeah, but
you have
the
an
thing is
stadium.
Even if it's not easy to move, on Saturday the field's bad, move it to Orlando on Monday. Move it to Tampa on Monday. Because this is the thing.
Then you're running into, your television deals.
All right,
now
exactly.
you're messing with money.
Exactly,
now you're messing with money.
Right now, exactly. This only matters when there's money involved. The Miami Dolphins playing the Sunday after was a 1 o'clock game. I think maybe against the Jets or something that nobody cared about. They just played the game. They didn't worry about player safety. What happened here was this. This was blown up all over Twitter with pictures of Azteca Stadium looking like crap. The NFLPA jumped on it, and this is one of the few times where the NFLPA can beat the owners because they can get public opinion behind themselves. But the NFLPA didn't worry about it on a Saturday or a Sunday game after a Saturday game that destroyed the field in Miami.
Yeah.
So,
anybody talking?
I was just looking for an opinion.
I'm at the point. I'm at the point now where I don't understand why basically the artificial turf has gotten so good now that why every stadium, NFL does mandate every stadium has artificial turf in it. I understand grass is still better, but grass is still unpredictable.
Grass is better.
Still weather
I'm
reliant.
sorry, but when I was growing up, 70s, 80s, the games I remember the most. 1977 Mud Bowl, Rams and Vikings in the mud. The field was a complete mud, and they still played the game.
All that.
1979 Kansas City, Tampa Bay, when Tampa Bay got to the playoffs for the first time ever. There was so much rain there, it looked like waterfalls coming off the steps. 1982 Miami, New England. Where John Smith comes out and clears the field to kick the field goal in all the snow. 1976, Bengals and Steelers playing for the division title. 6 inches of snow in the second half. It's what makes football great. And, the other thing that irritates me, Anthony and Steve, is the fact that sometimes you'll get a snow game, and at halftime they'll just shovel the field. That pisses me off. Because I like to watch snow games.
Yeah, I don't
Okay.
I don't like how the NFL tries to regulate the weather, and I miss it how it used to be. But it's different. It's 2018.
You know this, Anthony. If this was January 10th, 1982, and it was 59 degrees below zero in Cincinnati, the game would be moved to the next day. 1981 AFC Championship game, 59 degrees below zero, wind chill factor, would never be played today.
You don't think?
No.
With
I don't think there's any way.
No snow or rain?
No, I don't think they would play in that cold of water anymore. I mean, I think your cutoff's probably about 30 to 40 below nowadays, Steve. World's softer.
No, I can't argue with you. I mean, but there's so much more money put into players this year. It's so expensive to get a player hurt or lost. I mean, just the game's gotten a lot more expensive.
Everything's a lot more expensive. All right, guys.
Yeah.
So tomorrow, Condoleezza Rice will be on the show. Says she was just named the head coach of the Cleveland Browns. It's not April Fool's. I was just kidding. Let's see. So we got to have a pick for tonight. Chiefs, Rams, Anthony. Who do you like?
This is tough. I like Kansas City. I'm going to go with the Chiefs and Andy Reid. I think the Chiefs have a better defense. I think their defense has been quietly playing better. They've only given up 2 passing touchdowns in the past 5 or 6 weeks.
All right, Steve, you agree with Anthony, or are you going with the home team?
I got to go with the home team.
No reason, you're just going with the home team?
Yeah, it's going with the home team. Yeah. I think the Rams are a better football team.
Alrighty. I hate to do this, but I'm going to have to agree with Anthony. I think the Chiefs are the better football team. For now.
All right.
I think by the end of the year, they may not be. I think this game is a complete toss-up. I just have a feeling the Chiefs are going to win the game. And the sad thing here is I think this game's more important for the Rams because I don't think they can afford too many more losses, if any losses, to keep up with the Saints. Where I think the the Chiefs have a little bit more leeway to be the home field in the AFC playoffs. But, Anthony, any final words?
No, I'm just looking forward to the game tonight. I'm looking forward to Thanksgiving and see my Cowboys play and hopefully win.
You know what I'm looking forward to? I'm looking for a day where Thanksgiving football games will mean something and we're not stuck with the freaking Bears, or not the Bears, because the Bears are good, but we're not stuck with the freaking Lions. And the Cowboys is our 2 games. And I know Steve agrees with that, don't you, Steve? Wouldn't you like to see good teams?
Yes, indeedy. Like see the Colts play, so I can just watch them play a game.
Yeah, well, I think we need a petition for the Colts Bengals every year on Thanksgiving.
That would be regional game.
Yeah. All right, guys, we're going to go to wrap the show up. Tomorrow, Tuesday, me and Steve will be on, talk a little Notre Dame football and college football rankings, where we think people will be ranked tomorrow night, and if anybody can beat Alabama, so make sure you check us out then. Make sure you go to the Grueling Truth Facebook page, follow us there. Follow us on Twitter, @Grueling Truth. You can hear all of our shows on Spotify, iHeartRadio, iTunes, TuneIn, Spreaker, Stitcher. Wherever you find sports podcasts, you'll find the Grueling Truth. So, for Steve Risley, Anthony Cervino, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.